Ladies, let's talk. Let's talk about the woman who walks into a room not to be seen, but to escape being noticed. The woman who shows up strong, dressed well, focused, productive, yet when she goes home, she unzips her strength like a costume. The one who scrolls through her phone, not to reply, but to feel like the silence isn't screaming. The woman who's not invited, not because she's invisible, but because she intimidates rooms that never try to understand her. There's a silence that follows this kind of woman. And it's not the peace of being alone. It's the ache of not being chosen. You see, there's a difference between solitude and isolation. And many women walk around carrying the labels people put on them: too much, too deep, too serious, too holy, too focused, too unavailable. But what if I told you that heaven has always been drawn? This message isn't just for the woman with no friends. It's for the woman who's tried, the woman who's loved hard and been left, the woman who gave her best, and her best was never enough to keep someone close. The woman who constantly finds herself being the one that others call, but never the one they come through for. The one who can discern the pain in others, but no one ever stops to ask how she's doing. The woman with a heart big enough for nations, yet no one texts her good morning. I believe there is a divine reason some women feel like they're walking through life alone. And I believe God is not ignoring you. He's protecting you. He's developing something in you that requires silence. He's refining a voice in you that cannot be molded through popularity or social validation. He is breaking the need to be accepted so that you can become the kind of woman that leads even when she stands alone. He's creating a sanctuary inside of you, a dwelling place for purpose, so big, the noise of superficial relationships would only distract it. This sermon is a healing space for the woman who's tired of wondering, why don't they like me? For the woman who dreads holidays because every group photo reminds her she's not in it. For the woman who stopped trying to explain herself and started pretending the silence doesn't hurt. But more than anything, this is for the woman who knows deep down she was made for connection, real, raw, soul deep friendship. And she refuses to settle for being tolerated when God has called her to be celebrated in the right spaces. So tonight, we break the silence. Tonight, we call out the lie that you're not lovable. Tonight, we prophesy connection over isolation, restoration over rejection, assignment over abandonment. You are not empty, you are in waiting. And what's coming to you is not just friendship, it's divine alliance, kingdom connection, soul restoration. And it starts with the revelation that being friendless doesn't mean being forgotten. Some of the people you called friends were actually assignments, just not God's assignment for you. They were distractions dressed in laughter, companions cloaked in convenience. Sometimes we hold on to relationships because of history, but history is not the same as destiny. And this is where so many women get stuck, mourning connections God never approved and grieving losses that were actually divine subtraction. You see, when you're a woman with a calling, not everyone can walk with you. And not because you're better, but because you're burdened with vision, burdened with clarity, burdened with a future that demands alignment. And the reality is some people don't have the capacity to walk with the kind of woman you are becoming. It's not rejection, it's restriction. God is restricting access, not because you're not worthy of love, but because they were never worthy. The enemy loves to send people who feel good but lead you nowhere. The friend who always wants to talk but never listens. The friend who keeps you busy but never feeds your spirit. The friend who celebrates you as long as you're not shining too brightly. These are distractions, counterfeits. They mimic connection but leave you empty. They demand presence but offer no purpose. And when you have destiny on your life, you can no longer afford to confuse companionship with covenant. Let's go deeper. Many of us have called soul ties friendship because they didn't look romantic. But just because you didn't sleep with them doesn't mean you didn't tie yourself to them. Emotional access is still access. And some of you have been bleeding emotionally in relationships that only required you to survive, not to thrive. These friendships had you shrinking so someone else could feel tall. You kept explaining your heart to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. That's not friendship. That's bondage. And God, in His mercy, begins to pull you away. He shuts doors you kept knocking on. He silences phones that used to ring nonstop. He removes your appetite for certain environments, and suddenly you find yourself in a season of social dryness. You feel invisible, alone, uninvited. And if you're not careful, you'll mislabel that pruning as punishment. But God isn't punishing you. He's protecting the oil on your life. There are some dreams inside of you that require isolation. There are some gifts that can only grow in silence. And the truth is, not everyone has the faith to believe in what God has placed in you. Some people want the old version of you because they never intended to meet the evolved you. And in order for God to introduce you to divine alignment, He has to remove every relationship that's allergic to your future. Some friendships were never sent to love you, only to monitor you, watchers. Competitors disguised as companions. God is severing that. He's cutting it off. Because the weight of your destiny cannot be supported by counterfeit connections. He's raising your standard. He's fine-tuning your discernment. You're learning how to recognize who feeds your faith and who drains your spirit. You're learning how to stop begging people to stay when their exit was your deliverance. God is doing something new in you, and with that comes a new tribe. But you have to make room. And sometimes that means standing alone. Long enough for God to refill you, reintroduce you to yourself, and reposition you for relationships that are covenantal, not convenient. Not every friend you lose is a loss. Some of them are exits that cleared the runway for your destiny to take off. It's easy to say, God, send me people who understand me, people who get me, friends who match my energy, who pray with me, dream with me, fight for me, and grow beside me. But the question that shifts everything is not about what you want from others. It's about who you are to others. Because divine connection is not built on desire alone. It's built on readiness, on identity, on alignment. You don't attract what you fantasize about. You attract what you're prepared for. If you're asking for friends who are whole, ask yourself if you've healed from the things that cause you to mistrust people. If you're asking for friendships rooted in vulnerability, have you stopped pretending to be okay all the time? If you want people to show up for you, have you let them see the version of you that actually needs someone? Or are you still performing strength to avoid looking needy? We often want kingdom friendships, but still operate from wounded patterns. We shut down, we isolate, we self-protect, and then wonder why no one sees us. But you can't expect someone to come into your life and fight past all the walls you've built if you yourself don't recognize when you're hiding. God can't bless who you pretend to be. He blesses the real you. And until the real you shows up, divine connections can't either. Divine friendship is not a fantasy, it's a formation. It's you becoming the kind of woman who has the capacity to hold deep relationships without running, without sabotaging, without comparing, without clinging. It's not always about who's not calling. It's about who you're becoming when the phone doesn't ring. God's not just sending you people. He's preparing you to be someone they've also been praying for. You want a friend who's spiritually mature? Become a woman who's growing in the secret place. You want a friend who'll cover you in prayer? Become a woman who knows how to intercede for others without needing credit. You want a friend who shows up? Become a woman who shows up not just when it's convenient, but when it's costly. Divine connection isn't convenient, it's covenant. It requires investment, consistency, and healing. Let's go deeper. Sometimes we ask God to bless us with people who love us deeply, but deep love can't find you when shallow behavior keeps you hidden. Have you confronted the insecurity that makes you jealous of the women you're called to walk beside? Have you surrendered the fear that makes you reject others before they have a chance to accept you? These are the silent killers of friendship, the small fractures in identity that sabotage destiny before it ever has the chance to begin. And so God pauses. He waits. Not because he's cruel, but because he's kind enough not to send destiny before you're ready to carry it. He's not just developing your circle, he's developing you. Because your future friend doesn't need the you who still thinks everyone's going to hurt her. She needs the you who has learned how to heal without becoming hard, who has learned how to speak truth without losing tenderness, who knows how to stay loyal even when people change. You're not waiting on friends. You're being transformed into a friend worth waiting for. This is a divine becoming. And when the becoming is complete, when you're not afraid to be seen, not afraid to need, not afraid to give, not afraid to stay, then the ones you've been praying for will arrive. Because heaven always responds to alignment. And when your identity aligns with your destiny, divine connections can finally find their way home. There is a sound in silence that many people miss. Because when the room gets quiet and your phone stops buzzing, when no invitations come, when even your shadow feels distant, that's when God begins to speak. Not in the loudness of community, but in the stillness of being set apart. You see, the silence doesn't mean you're abandoned. It means class is in session. And in this classroom, God doesn't teach you who they are. He teaches you who you are. We often want God to show us who belongs in our life, but his priority is always first to reveal who you are without anyone else's opinion clouding it. Who are you when no one claps? Who are you when no one texts back? Who are you when you walk through a storm and can borrow courage from someone else's faith? That's the you God wants to meet. That's the you he's calling out of hiding. Because intimacy, true God-ordained intimacy, can only be sustained by someone who knows their identity. If you don't know who you are, you'll compromise who you are just to keep people close. You'll tolerate dishonor, betray yourself for validation, say yes when your soul is screaming no, and God in his kindness will not allow you to live a life surrounded by people, yet still feel unknown. You will remove the noise so you can finally recognize your voice. He will teach you how to live without applause. He will teach you how to worship without a witness, how to rejoice without a reason. Because the identity he is forming in you cannot be dependent on affirmation. It must be rooted in revelation. That you are loved because you are his. Not because you're needed, not because you're useful, not because you're beautiful, successful, loyal, funny, or kind, but because before you were formed, he knew you, chose you, approved you. That truth will anchor you when everyone else walks away. Because now you're not chasing connection to complete you. You're receiving it from a place of wholeness. And when you show up whole, you no longer beg to be seen. You no longer shrink to fit into rooms that were never designed for your capacity. You stop performing and start discerning. Because when your identity is secure, your standards become sacred. The silence is where you learn to discern God's voice above all others. It's where you stop looking outward for answers and start looking inward for alignment. It's where the Father begins to whisper things about you that no friend could ever tell you. You are chosen. You are powerful. You are becoming. And when you start believing those words, you no longer need others to remind you of your worth. You carry it. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the silence has lasted this long. Because God has been building you into a woman who's no longer afraid to walk alone. Not because she doesn't value community, but because she's finally stopped idolizing it. The version of you that's emerging from this silence is secure, rooted, wise, and full of discernment. And that's exactly the version of you that can steward intimacy when it comes. God will not release you into relationships that will crush you. He will not send you into friendship with an empty cup, hoping someone else will fill it. No. He fills you first in silence, in secret, so that when you speak, it's from overflow, not desperation. He teaches identity before intimacy, so that when people come, they're not meeting a reflection of their expectations. They're encountering a woman who finally knows who she is. Rejection is not just an event. It's a wound. And if left unhealed, it will shape how you see yourself, how you show up in the world, and how you allow others to treat you. For many women, the story didn't start with friendship, it started with rejection. Being picked last, being talked about behind closed doors, being included but never embraced, being needed but never truly known. And over time, you begin to wear that pain like identity. You begin to interpret every silence as an insult, every no as a personal attack, every disconnection as a declaration that something is wrong with you. But healing begins when you stop looking for validation as proof that you're worthy. Healing begins when you stop asking broken people to confirm what heaven has already spoken over your life. When you stop waiting for applause, for inclusion, for acceptance, as if those things are the measuring sticks of your worth. Because true healing says, even if they don't choose me, I still know I'm chosen. That's the power of healing from rejection. It gives you your identity back. You see, rejection often makes you a shapeshifter. You learn how to morph, how to perform, how to silence parts of yourself just to be tolerated. You quiet your wisdom so they don't feel insecure. You dim your beauty so they don't call you arrogant. You hold back your dreams so they don't think you're unrealistic. But every time you adjust to fit their comfort, you betray your calling. And the worst part, it still doesn't guarantee they'll love you. So God, in his love, starts to intervene. He starts to remove the props, the places you've hidden your value. He takes away the performance. He shuts down the striving. And you find yourself alone, exposed, stripped of the masks you wore to survive. But this is not punishment, it's liberation. Because it's here in this quiet undoing that God begins to whisper, you don't have to do anything to be worthy. You just have to be. Healing from rejection teaches you that your value is not conditional. It's not based on who approves, who includes, who affirms, who compliments. It's rooted in the unchanging truth of who God says you are. And when that truth becomes your foundation, you stop begging for crumbs from people who were never meant to feed you. You stop auditioning for friendships. You stop competing for closeness. You stop explaining your heart to those who never deserve to hold it. Let's go deeper. When you heal from rejection, your discernment sharpens. You no longer confuse toxic loyalty for love. You no longer chase people who ignore your boundaries. You learn how to walk away without guilt and how to stay without fear. You stop holding on to people just because you're afraid of being alone. Because now you know solitude is better than suffocating in spaces where you're only halfway seen. And slowly, the pain becomes peace. The silence becomes strength. You start loving your own company. You start hearing God louder than the voices that once broke you. You look in the mirror and see someone you no longer need to hide. That's when you know you've healed. When presence is a gift, not a transaction. When you can sit at your own table without longing for someone to pull up a chair. When you walk into rooms with your head high, not because you need them to notice, but because you've already been seen by the one who matters most. Rejection loses its power the moment you realize it never defined you, it only reflects. There's a narrative that tells women, if you're alone, you're lacking. If you don't have a circle, something's wrong with you. If you're not constantly surrounded by sisters, then maybe you're just hard to love. But I want to speak to that lie and pull it out by the root. Because a woman without friends is not a failure. She is not flawed. She is not deficient. She is in preparation. And preparation always feels lonely before it feels purposeful. You are not incomplete because your phone is quiet. You are not behind because no one is checking in. You are not forgotten because you haven't been invited. You are in a divine holding space where God is not rushing to give you people because He's intentional about the people He sends. Alignment is not about quantity, it's about quality. It's about assignment. And sometimes the ones you're called to walk with won't find you until you've stepped fully into the woman you're becoming. There is a version of you that attracts the wrong people. The unhealed version, the unsure version, the version that overextends, over-apologizes, and over-explains. That version drew relationships based on who you used to be, not who you were born to become. So God begins to protect you. He blocks texts. He disconnects ties. He lets certain friendships fade, not because He wants you isolated forever, but because He wants you aligned moving forward. Alignment means walking with people who don't just like you, but who see you, who challenge you, who cover you in prayer, not gossip, who correct you in love, who sit with you in silence, not just in celebration. That kind of connection is holy. And heaven doesn't hand it out casually. That kind of friendship will demand a new level of you, a healed level, a discerning level, a surrendered level. So if you've been walking through life with no close friends, it may be because you're still becoming the kind of woman who can hold that kind of connection without compromise. And here's the beauty of alignment. You won't have to force it. You won't have to prove yourself. You won't have to wonder where you stand. The right people will feel like confirmation, not confusion. You'll know it by the peace they bring, the way your soul excels around them, the way your purpose sharpens just from being in their presence. That's alignment. And it only comes after you've stopped trying to make everyone fit. Many women are exhausted, not from loneliness, but from trying to force friendships that were never meant to last. You keep trying to resuscitate relationships that God allowed to die for a reason. But in this season, He's teaching you how to recognize what doesn't belong. And that awareness is a gift. Because you're no longer going to shrink in rooms just to be included. You're going to walk in the conference that whoever walks with you in the next season is sent, not just convenient. So no, you are not incomplete. You are in transition. You are being pruned refined, elevated. And when the time is right, the people aligned with your assignment will appear. Not because you needed them to survive, but because you're ready to thrive. Until then, let God finish the work. Let him form the woman who doesn't cling to community out of fear, but welcomes it from a place of fullness. Because what's coming is not just friendship, it's divine partnership. It's purpose-driven. And it will be worth every silent season that prepared you for it. And now, to the woman sitting quietly with a storm in her heart, wondering if God sees her, he does. To the one who shows up every day with grace and grit, but goes to bed wondering, what's wrong with me? There is nothing wrong with you. There's something right with you. So right, in fact, that heaven decided to hide you until the time was right. You are not being punished, you are being preserved. There is something sacred about your solitude, because in the absence of noise, God has been rebuilding your voice. In the absence of distraction, God has been refining your discernment. And in the absence of company, he has been restoring your confidence. Not the kind built on applause, but the kind anchored in truth. That you were never called to be everything to everyone. You were called to be everything God created you to be. And that doesn't require a crowd. It requires courage. The courage to be still. The courage to heal. The courage to become whole. Even when no one is clapping. So tonight, I pray over every woman who's walked through a silent season. I pray over the one who feels unseen, misunderstood, overlooked. May your identity be rooted so deeply in God that no absence shakes your worth. May your confidence rise from the ashes of rejection. May your heart beat in rhythm with heaven's affirmation. Because friends will come. Tribe will find you. But for now, may you fall so deeply in love with the voice of God that you no longer crave the noise of people who never valued you. May your value become unshakable, your boundaries sacred, your spirit discerning. May you no longer chase being chosen because you've already been claimed by a God who never misses, never forgets, and never wastes. This is not the end of your story. This is not your forever. This is preparation. And when alignment comes, it will not confuse you. It will confirm everything God has whispered in the silence. So lift your head, daughter. Breathe deep. You're not a woman with no friends. You're a woman becoming the kind of friend heaven trusts to carry divine connection. And that is not a loss. That is legacy.